And we are live for St. Louis City versus New York City FC recap, courtesy of your friends at Ball Watching here, Jake and Justin. It's a Sunday morning. Happy Sunday morning to you all. Happy Sunday morning to you, Justin. It was a lovely night to be at City Park last night. I think it felt a little bit more like the 2023 of old. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling incredible, Jake. This Sunday is going to be awesome. What are we getting up to? Like 75 today?
Woo.
Sunny. City just won. We're back. I feel awesome.
Yeah, we are officially back. And just a reminder for you all, Ball Watching in 2024 is presented by our friends at Hoffman Brothers. You talk about the weather, Justin. We've already talked about it in the last couple of shows, but this is just St. Louis tried and true weather right now. And with Hoffman Brothers, I actually have a home protection plan, which kind of gives you like a membership to work with Hoffman Brothers, to have them out on an as needed basis to do my annual checkups, which I'm going to have them over here very, very soon to flip on this AC. Low-key, I've kind of already flipped it on. It has been a little warm here, but definitely not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And these are the right people at Hoffman Brothers to help remind me of what I'm supposed to be doing and teach me a lesson or two when needed, Justin. So shout out to Hoffman Brothers. They're an awesome sponsor, and we're so glad to have them on board.
This is kind of gross, Jake. I was in the office the other day, and they came in to clean or switch out our filters, our air filters. Please go check yours.
Oh,
it was so gross what they pulled out. It was almost black. And I was like, when was the last? You're supposed to do it like every 3 months at a minimum.
I think so.
Have Hoffman Brothers come look if you don't know where yours is, because the one in our office was so dirty. No wonder people are getting like allergies all over the place. There's no clean air.
I would jump on that too, but I'm honestly a little guilty of that sometimes as well. And I'm sure you all listening probably are too.
If you don't even know what I'm talking about, call Hoffman Brothers ASAP, 314-664-3011.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's a hot way to start off the show here, Justin. And I think this team started off nice and hot on last night with a good starting 11, but missing, I'd say, one name in Joao Klaus that I think probably was a little bummed being the bench, but you can't argue with results. And how did you feel about the starting 11 heading into this match, Justin? With the back four, I think we are pretty close. Nilsson was a surprise, I think, to see starting. But how else did you feel about the starting 11?
We've talked about this. I talked about you with it, Jake. One, overall, I like the starting 11. I do think Klaus needed a little bit of a kick in the butt, and I think this is going to really fire him up, and it's going to be good long term. So no one needs to be worried about locker room stuff. Like, he's a team guy. He understands that he has not been performing, and Sam has, so Sam deserved it. Jake, we're no longer putting Dwyer at our left back. I told you this at the game. Until that man gets on the field, all right, he did get on the field, until he consistently plays. We're putting Mark Anik there. He played another great game. We cannot keep getting left back wrong until you speak it into existence that Dwyer will start. The one I do want to talk about real quick, Jake, before we get into it, Blum. So I love Durkin. I think Durkin's been, like you said, I think ever since the first game, he's been a real train and has been absolutely dominating the midfield for us and flying all over the place, winning tackles. What's going on with Blum?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It sounded like he took a knock, I read last night, to the ankle or something late on in practice towards the latter part of this past week, and they just weren't going to risk him. So that's where you end up not being on the injury report, but also not being in the 18 potentially for the match. So it was a weird kind of instance last night, but I do think his job is on the line as well, with the guy like Durkin coming in and playing very, very well, acquitting himself well. Going to the midfield four, so we started with a 4-4-2 last night. Indy, Durkin, Leuven, and Célio. I think of those four, Indy really impressed me in the very, very beginning. I'd say even the first half, this guy was just electric. He embodied, I feel like, the spirit of this team and was constantly on the ball, creating danger, creating good moments for his teammates, and just being really feisty down that right touchline. The other person I will give my flowers to as well is going to be Célio. I mean, Célio, I don't know if we've been negative about him on the show, Justin, as of this year. I know we've never been negative overall. We just kind of debated, is he spark plug guy? Is he starter worthy? Where is an 11 where he is the guy that's fixed into that position? And last night was really impressive from him. I do feel like we still tend to isolate him out on the left, and we build up a lot on the right with Totlan and Indy in this last match. But he looked dangerous last night and very lethal.
Yeah, Jake, we will never talk poorly on Mr. Célio Pompeo. Favorite player by far. I do agree. I even said it going in. I don't know if he's a full-time starter. I do think that it's almost he's more dangerous coming off the bench with how quick and pacey he is and taking guys one-on-one. But he proved it for the full. However, what time did he come off, or did he come off
last night?
He did not. He did not come off.
Yeah,
he did it for the full 90. He was taking guys on. He was creating chances all over the field. I'd say our first highlight was in the 3rd minute with great Indy with some great footwork to get into the box and win a corner kick. But then in the 7th minute, that's when Célio took the guy one-on-one, rips the shot off the post. And then right after that, it was a lovely AZ carry that got him there. And that shot, he was coming across the top. That's what's so great about him being on the right and Indy being on the left. When he's coming in when he's on the left and he comes in onto his right foot, that is one of the most dangerous shots, top of the 18, just rips it off the post. And he creates those chances time and time again.
Yeah, it was a great separation. He gave himself with the defender to create that angle for the shot. Really unfortunate not to get the bounce there. I'm seeing some comments in here from Tyler and Jonathan around AZ last time. We talked about him already having that carry to give Célio that chance. He was looking at, I think, dangerous last night, but still, I think we expect a little bit more. I think when I look at some of the downfalls in his game just right now as a spectator, I do think he has a tendency to kind of give the ball up a little bit too much, trying to do a little bit too much, period. And, I think he lacks a little bit of that physicality. He gets frustrated out there because he is a really high and hot presser. Like, he is all over the field, bouncing around. And I just think sometimes it's not channeled strategically and he kind of just runs himself ragged. And last night, I just feel like you could see the frustration we saw here from Jonathan. He looked pretty ticked off to be taken off last night. I saw that too. I'm not worried about it. I think he has high standards for himself heading into this season. And I think all around the league, the bell was rung last year watching him play. And I still do want to temper expectations. And Tyler has a good point here saying that, needs more minutes since the beginning of last season. And he still needs a lot of development. And I fully agree with that. I don't think he's anywhere near the finished product. I think another big thing I haven't mentioned yet is his finishing. That wasn't great last year. I think we've talked about on the show before about being able to have that shot in his locker or just that lethal touch to give someone that tee up there. He doesn't really have that yet, but I still think a crucial part of the system. And for me, I think he was good last night. I don't think he was great, but I think he was good. And I definitely understand the frustration. I think he's a young guy, wants to prove himself, wants to maybe use this as a platform to get to the next stage in his career, but let's not force it, right?
No, I think AZ is one of those guys. I was talking about it with Bauer and Dan on the way in. I think he also could be one of those guys potentially that needs to be a spark plug. I mean, think about it last year. He was not a consistent starter last year, and he did so well for us last year coming off the bench and being that spark plug. So we'll figure it out. I'm not that, like you said, I'm not that worried about it, but he had another great chance in the 12th minute, created some creativity at the top of the 18, slots someone in and tries to slot across, and they have to clear it out for a corner. Right then, I already noticed, Jake, and turned and talked to you about it. 12 minutes into the game, we'd already created more chances than we did in our previous 3 games. And we could feel the energy in that place last night.
Yeah, and they weren't even big chances. It's just we felt like we could be dangerous. In the last couple of games, there was so minimal opportunities for us, even half chances like that. The post, even, I was happy to see. I'm like, okay, this is early on in the game. We talked about starting hot in the preview show. I think that was a great way to come out of the gates for us. We were definitely flying, and it continued. Indy had some really tidy footwork in the 17th minute up at the top of the box. Couldn't find the shot angle. I have a lot of Indy highlights in here because 7 minutes later, he won the ball. Great pressing. Indy is, to me, when you think about the system of play that we have at City, it's Indiana Vassilev. He has a little bit of everything. Like, he's got that engine, he's got a good amount of technical ability, he's got creativity, and he's got this mentality that he's just not going to give up. And last night he won the ball from a great press. He dished it to Sam, who was like about 25 or so yards out, and Sam ripped one into the 15th row. Wasn't even close. But I like that we are generating chances from our bread and butter scheme of play. And that's good to see because we didn't even see that in the last game. We're getting away from the things that made us so successful last year. And it was such a good thing to be reminded of this can still be successful in MLS. Yeah,
we had a couple more highlights even before the goal came, Jake. I think there's another one that we have 2 defensive plays that kind of got us going. Nilsson with a last-ditch tackle after a through ball in behind. I think Nilsson had an incredible game, especially in the first half last night. The 29th, then Totland moved all the way back to the center of the top of the 18. He's usually a wide fullback. He came all the way across and did a sliding block at the top of the 18 to save a chance that was going on net for Berkey. And then in the 32nd, you could really feel it coming again. There's a giveaway in the midfield. We slot in AZ, who is usually kind of spicy with his shots, can kind of be a little sporadic. But he slots one. It was almost like a slow roller with his left, and it goes off the post and should have easily went in as well.
2 early posts. Man, we were dangerous. And obviously, just a reminder, those don't count as shots on goal. They don't register with XG, which is unfortunate. But for us, we finally get the breakthrough in the 35th minute. And it comes via Célio-h, your guy, Justin. This is your man. And he delivered last night. He got the ball, did some great carrying, some great dribbling footwork. Again, creates an angle, creates space from his defender, frees up a look in on goal. And instead of going into the far post like he did on his previous post shot, he actually just tucks it near post. Not a whole lot of pace, not a whole lot of power, but a great deal of accuracy and a very composed finish. I think it went through a couple defenders, but still a great composed finish for a young winger that you're looking on. I think with how we're starting the season, Justin, we're relying on him a lot so far. So I do think that he's factoring into Carnell's plans very heavily for this season.
And then we had a couple just quick highlights too after the goal before we get to halftime. 42nd minute, we haven't even had to mention him yet. That's because we played so well. Berkey with a huge save, absolutely cleans the house of the guy in the 6 after he knocked down the cross. And then 45, just well, I think it was like the 45 plus 2 or so. Nilsson was in behind again, uses his body. We talked about it. He's a little bit slower of a big center back, but if you know how to use your body, it doesn't matter. And he just absolutely bodies this guy to make up for his lack of pace there, bringing us into the half.
Yeah, it was good. And I don't know if we had any other defensive highlights from that, but there was definitely some defensive highlights even before that. And I would say Nilsson probably being most of them. I think they did kind of target him last night over the top. And for his credit, he played most every one of those scenarios that I can remember very coolly, like a veteran, because I don't know if this is a result of his injury or a result of his age, but I do not think the pace is what I thought it was going to be from him. And I didn't expect him to be this barn burner, just flyer out there. I did expect him to be physical and very smart, high soccer IQ like he is. But I think the pace is not where I thought it was. But when you can use your body to make up for that difference in pace and body off, a 20-year-old Uruguayan winger that's just charging at full head of steam down the field, you can play. You can keep that style through your older ages when you can play like that. So I want to just make that distinction. He played very, very, very smart defensive soccer last night.
I'm trying to find the exact minute on this, but I don't know if I'll be able to get it up in time. But going into the second half, I don't know, in the 50th-ish minute, Durkin, I don't know what that volley did, but I'm pretty sure he scored on the Chicago Fire's net up north and wherever that ball went, because it definitely didn't stay in the stadium. He tried to do like some kind of a volley on a ball bouncing from like 35 out and just absolutely skied it. So I don't know when that exact minute was, but that was just one of the low lights I have. I love him thinking that he has a chance to do it. So he might as well rip it. Maybe he gets a hold of one. That'd be awesome.
Yep.
60th minute, flipping back to highlights. Tolan with a great step up as New York City FC threatened in the top for 18 again. In the 61st, there's a quick free kick in for Sam, who rips one first time. I like that. I think it was Durkin that actually slotted him in there. I think it was right around half, and I think Sam and him just made eye contact, and he just chips him in behind. And I think that's awesome that we're already making those little connections this early on in the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, actually, I want to have a quick learning opportunity in here for folks. Kevin has a good question in here, Justin.
Maybe I thought we were going to wait for the end of this, but
maybe you can learn a little bit too here right now. But we just talked about Célio's goal, and we're going to get to a Dinaran's goal very soon here. But there's a note here on XG. So XG, depending on where you get it from, last night we usually use FOTMob for that, and FOTMob had our XG at 0.72 for the entire match, and they had New York City at 0.51. And you might think to yourself, well, we had 2 goals. 0.72 XG kind of feels weird. And I want to say that, yes, it does kind of feel weird, but think about the 2 goals that we scored, especially at Dinaran's. Célio's, I'm a little bit perplexed on, because I think that should have a higher XG. Because right now, if I'm looking at Célio's goal, they marked that as 0.11 XG. I think it's because of where he was in the box and maybe the defenders in front of him pre-shot. But when you look at, there's another add-on for XG that I think actually gives a little more context to these opportunities, and that's XG on target, so XG OT. So when you take that pre-shot, XG is all pre-shot. Nothing about where the ball was going when you hit it. It's about where you were when you hit it. And then XG on target says, where did you hit it? That's your post shot kind of adding on to the XG. And that gave it a 0.33, which I think is a little more fair of that opportunity, because it wasn't easy by any means. If you look at Sam's, for example, Sam had a 0.08. Where he was on the field, Justin, we talked about this, he had no right shooting that ball. That is not normally a shot coach yells at you and says, shoot it, you know?
I agree, Jake, but still 0.81 or whatever it was for the total game is just ridiculous in my opinion that we ripped 2 off the post. I don't care what they want to make their little like, oh, if it hits the post or what the post shot, literally using the word post in a term and trying to describe shots that hit the post doesn't make sense to me either. The chances that we created deserve more. That's basically saying we should have only deserved maybe a goal in that game, and that's just not true in my opinion. That's why I think XG is dumb.
But this, I also think, is what we do, because we only had 3 shots on target last night, 2 of them being goals. So we weren't testing this goal.
That's because you're taking out 2 of the ones that hit the post.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I understand. Those are. I agree that they can't be counted as shots on target because you have to do the math of if you have a shot on target, it's either a goal or a save, and if it hits the post, then obviously it was neither of those. So I agree with that. The fact that we slapped 2 at the post.
I'm wrong. Posts do count for XG. They don't count for shots on goal. So yes, really, I like kind of 5 shots on target. So Célio-h's first post was a 0.06 XG, and that was pretty far out in the 18. So all this to say, I think how it ends up looking on the stat book, yeah, it could be frustrating for sure. But this is how we made our money last year. This is
what was Célio-h's first post? What was the XG?
The first post was 0.06. They gave it.
See, in my opinion, maybe this is where I'm thinking about it wrong. I'm taking that as a percentage. That would be 6% chance of a goal there. If we're talking about XG, there's no chance that that's only 6%. Célio scores that, I would say probably 35% of the time.
No, it's a
Where
fair.
is this 0.6 coming from?
I don't know if it's meant to be taken as a percentage, because when we also think about this, there are wide open opportunities that are not ones. Like I feel like the highest I've seen XG go is like in the 0.5, 0.6 range, and that
our PKs are like 0.7,
something like that. Something like that. You know,
I think it's a percentage of a chance of a goal. That would make sense to me that like 70% of PKs are scored. I think it should be a percentage. And when you add them all up, if you get to 1, that's where your goal should be. I think it's percent.
Let's look up what a PK XG usually is. I mean, because it has to be the same for everyone. Doesn't matter who's shooting. But
you do some digging on your little XG stuff. I will keep us rolling through the highlights. All right. 65th. We have 2 highlights back to back, 1 offensive and then 1 defensive. The first one, Big Sam, signature, just turn and run and gets a cross into Klaus, but unfortunately the cross gets cut out. But then immediately they go on a counter on that. Nilsson with a great sliding tackle on the counter, 1v1, top of the 18. And then Parker absolutely bullying Keaton Parks for an easy pickup for Roman. He threw him almost into the stands. Parker made that guy look like he weighed 40 pounds. I will say then the 68th was our first sub. Was it the first sub actually? Or is it one of our subs that we have? Here, and that's when Ostrak came in for AZ, and that's what we were kind of talking about earlier, that I think AZ looked a little upset. I looked it up, Jake. He's played a ton of minutes for us already, and I'm not that shocked, and I don't think he was having an incredible game at that point. And that was actually our second sub because we had Klaus come on in the 59th. But so that's Ostrak, AZ, and then other subs that happened throughout the game. If we want to stick on subs real quick, we brought on Thor in the 88th for Sam, and we brought on Dewyer in the 89th for Marcanic. That's more of I would say a little bit more of a stall tactic, and also getting guys a little bit more chance to play some minutes, and especially for Sam, more giving him a round of ovation when he steps off in the 88th. Because, I mean, what are you doing in the 88th? That's going to change the game. It's already 2-0, either at forward or at left back for Dewyer. But it was good to finally see Dewyer.
And I think in the minimal amount of time we did see him, he looked pretty good. And it was very, very small. So I really want to see more. And I'm going to keep putting it into existence, Justin. Now that he's seen the field, I feel vindicated. I can keep.
I feel like Marcanic's been playing so well. I don't see why he needs to come off.
Yeah, it's not like because I believe it's merited even at this point. I think Marcanic has acquitted himself well. I mean, he was a 7.6 last night looking at FOTMOB, which is one of the higher performers. And I would echo that. I think he was pretty solid last night. What's left, Justin?
What's up?
What's left? What do you got here? I did find the answer, by the way, on the extra.
All right, hold on. Let me take us through the rest of the game, and I'll make it real quick. What the 82nd? I know we said we need a replay. I didn't get a chance to see what the red card was. I know it was very odd. So basically, we had a foul that occurred on Durkin, or Durkin had the foul. It was like, oh God, they went to VAR. We thought maybe Durkin was getting a straight red. The ref comes back, gives a yellow to Durkin and a red card to Sands on NYFC. And I'm assuming, and from what the guys were saying around us, that and they wouldn't show the replay on the screen. I didn't get a chance to look at it this morning. That Durkin had a tackle, but then the Sands guy like rolled over and either did a kick with his cleats at him or something that was dirty, and that's why he ended up getting the red. I mean, it was already in the 82nd, so that pretty much put the game to bed. Great sliding block by Totland in the 87th. Last thing I'll say about the game, Jake, I don't appreciate where we keep giving up these fouls. Just off, it's probably about the width of the 18, probably about 30, 35 yards out. It's a perfect spot to where you just let the whole entire team of New York City FC or the other teams that we played against line up on our 18, and you just clip one in the back, and it's a nightmare to try to defend and goal keep. And we've done that time and time again with these. We need to stop having these little chippy fouls to let them whip balls in. I think that's how they scored the goal for Houston. When they had the ball, they whipped one in from there, a little head down, and an easy finish far post. We got to
It's so cheap. And last night, I do think if I had any overarching low light for the team, I do think our discipline was a little bit off last night. And I don't think it was because we were pressing too hard. I just think there were some boneheaded fouls last night and a couple boneheaded yellows. I don't think any of our yellows were used in the way that you want to see them used, which is more of a professional foul if there's going to be a counter or a breakaway. If I'm remembering correctly, they were mistimed or just not good challenges on slides. And the Durkin one kind of sticks out to me. The Indy one sticks out to me, just needless. And in the areas you're talking about, for us, don't give teams that opportunity in those set pieces. I'm not saying that we're a bad defensive set pieces team in defending those, but you're asking for it. And to take those fouls where they are, like Justin, you mentioned, you're allowing New York to progress up the field very quickly by this free kick and have them challenge us in the box.
And you're giving them a chance in a game that they had not had chances through the run of play. Don't give them chances by giving them set pieces. And if they get a little spark from putting in a crappy goal on a set piece, then this game completely opens up again. So good comment here by Brooks asking about yellows. The accumulation, is it the same as last year? Yes, it is. So to remind everybody, once you get 5 yellows, you are suspended for a game. Then if you get another 3, you're suspended for a game, another 3, another 3. There's also fines that come with that. I will say there is good behavior. What is it, Jake? If you go 10 games or 10 games in a row or 5 games in a row without getting yellow, then you knock that back down. No one tracks that as 5 games in a row. No one tracks that. So if you go out to like the MLS website and you see like guys that are accumulating like 7 yellows, but they haven't sat a game yet, that's because of the good rule of the fact that or good behavior rule where they've gone 5 games in a row where they had not gotten a yellow. So the count actually brings down a game. But last night we had 5 yellow cards. We had Marcanic in the 21st, Indy in the 41st, Totland right before half at 45 plus 3. Then you also had Durkin in the 82nd that we already talked about, and then Ostrak in the 90th. I would agree that both of those, neither the Totland one or the Ostrak one needs to have when you're already at the 45 plus 3 or the 90th. Just don't do that there. And someone already put in here Jake, did you already share the comment that it was Tyler? Thank you for putting this in here. The red card was called because he stuck his leg in an unnatural position. So it was definitely something that was a little bit dirty. That was not cleanly seen for anybody who's at the game because they didn't want to show that replay on the screen.
Agreed. So let's round out, Justin, with some overall stats for the night that I thought were interesting. Plus, we'll get into player ratings here. So anyone drop us your questions. By the way, great conversation in the chat. Love you all for tuning in here and having some good dialogue.
Did you say the L word?
What?
You love them?
I love you. Yeah, I do. I love you all. But getting into some stats, we had every offensive category. And actually, I would say some surprising ones as well. So just to take you through it, we talked about XG already. Actually, one more thing on XG, open play. Last night, we were dangerous from open play, which is not necessarily a big characteristic of ours. We are usually very XG heavy on set pieces. And last night, we didn't have to rely as much on those. So that was nice to see. Field tilt was significantly angled in our favor. When you look at field tilt, that's the percentage or ratio of possession in the attacking third for your team. And field tilt for us last night was 56.7%. So we definitely had the better to play in the dangerous areas.
I was about to say, what did our grass guy do to give us to let us start playing downhill?
He angled it, yeah,
he angled it by an extra 5%, so that we're running downhill and they're running uphill. Is that like a thing you can do when you're at home?
That's what he did. It's the home field advantage, the city park advantage. Justin, one thing I found interesting last night is we had more accurate passes. Our percentage of accurate passes was higher than this vintage possession style New York City FC team. I don't know if that's going to happen again this season. That is rare for us. And it makes sense, though, right? We take more chances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, I mean, we had more accurate passes. We still, just to remind everybody, we still had 45% possession. They had 55. We just did better with our passes when we did that. And I don't think we ever want to be a team. I had my family members texting me. They're like, dang, we're really getting outpassed. Like, possession looks awful. And that is usually a stat that I would say you go to in a lot of games to see kind of how the flow of the game is. If you haven't watched like the first 30 minutes, you look at possession, you're like, oh, wow, Man City's got 80% possession. They must be killing this team. That's usually true with Man City. Maybe that was a bad example for us, but we like not having the most possession because that's our style of play. So us having 45%, I think is a good sweet spot for us.
And I think the possession is, for me, it's the top of the pyramid. It's interesting, but you really got to look a little bit beneath to learn about like what's important with that. And when you look beneath, I talked about field tilt. Look about the touches in the opposition half. We had 158 to their 141. Look at touches in the opponent's 18 box. We had 19 to their 17. So yes, they have more possession, but we had more possession in the places where it counts the most. So that's an important kind of way to paint that.
Yeah, I agree. And as we're getting into player ratings, Jake, I'm going to bring this question in from Jonathan. He says, do you guys think we're more likely to stick with a 4-2-3-1 to start for the time being? I do. Honestly, I will say everything that Jake saw and that we've seen when we were doing research this morning had us as like a 4-4-2. And I think that's mainly because we talked about it once. I think it was like the third minute when they had a goal kick. It's literally Sam and AZ were at the top of their 18 with their toes on the 18. And so it looked like a 4-4-2 for a lot, but I think that's really when the press is happening. We've seen it, even if we're in a 4-2-3-1, one of those guys, they rotate. It's either AZ, it's either Indy or Célio. They kind of rotate and letting who's going to be the front guy with Sam in the press. But I think when we're building up, it's still a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe against the ball, you see more of a 4-4-2. And then maybe with the ball, you see us kind of evolve into a more 4-2-3-1. And I kudos to Carnell and the team for learning this, because I do think there's definitely some intricacies in how they evolve and they change for, defensive transitions and such. And if you look at average player positions last night, that was really telling for me as well. When I look at this graphic, and we can share this out with you all on social media after, but you look at our formation, Tim Parker and Nilsson are basically, just right in front of Berkey. The rest of our team is kind of clustered all around the midfield with, I would say the next line is Totland and then Durkin and then Marcanic. And then you have a cluster of Indy, AZ, Adeniran, Leuven, and Célio. Célio very much more isolated out on his left. I think, like I said before, we channel a lot of our attack down the right-hand side of the field, and that was at least last night. I wouldn't say that's always a theme of ours, but I think when you have a guy like Totland, and I keep switching up how I change it, but Justin, we did look up. It's Totland, right? That's what we're saying?
It's Totland. Yeah. It's very quick. He says it like we're going Totland.
We're heavy on pronunciations here. We're going to get them right. We've been doing the due diligence.
Totland and Dewyer. Those are our new guys. Yes. I mean, like you said, I don't even think our announcers in the stadium care. So we need to all reach out to Lexi and just say, hey, here's your guys' names and how they say it.
Because we know. We do know.
We have a little bit of an insight there, Jake. We're not you and I are not deciding this. We have a link of these guys saying their own names. So all they have to do is instead when they score a goal, if the announcer guy just wants to say, and a goal by, and let Totland say his own name, I'd rather it be that than Mr. Totland.
Absolutely. One thing to also keep in mind on the formation point is whenever Rasmus Holm comes back, and I'm not holding my breath. We also just haven't seen him in a long time period, but I think he gives you an option for more true winger like a Célio on the right. And so I think our 4-2-3-1 becomes really more of a real 4-2-3-1 in that case, because what you can do then is stretch the field with Célio on the left, Ulm on the right, and then you can have a Leuven in the middle, an AZ in the middle, or an Indy in the middle, and then you have maybe a Dirk and Blum, right in front of the back four that gives you a lot of stability in the middle and back part of the field. I think I could definitely get behind that formation, or maybe you could try Adeniran on a wing as well if you want to get him onto the pitch with Klaus and see them both succeed. So I think even we see him get introduced last night, still not convinced they played that well together yet.
All right, so real quick, Jake, let's get into player ratings and kind of round this out. But you just said, as somebody gets onto the pitch rocks last night. I was there again last night. I had a family dinner, so I showed up late, had a beer waiting for me. That place is absolutely incredible. Went there again after the game with Bauer. They were absolutely rocking. The service is incredible. Now the weather's nice. The doors are open. The patio's flowing. Get to the pitch. The food rocks. Get a frozen Irish coffee. I had another one again last night. I turned 4 more people that had not had it. I shared mine with them. And they're like, wow, this is insane. Go get a frozen Irish coffee. Go to the pitch. Go there on this nice, beautiful day. We have like 6 MLS games today, college basketball. The Battlehawks are coming back. The Blues won again last night. Go to the pitch and just enjoy it.
All right, Justin. Player ratings. We've kind of just glossed over this because we've been so pent up in the last couple episodes with preview content as well, but we can kind of chill on this one and do this. And Tyson has a good question in here around with player ratings coming up overall. Is that our best 11 right now, even with Klaus on the bench? You know, I'm a proponent of you play the hot hand. And if that team is going to get you the result like we saw last night, the energy that we saw last night, the chance creation that we saw last night, I think you got to keep rolling with it, honestly. And I love the back line. I'm totally good with where we're at. And then the midfield, I could see Carnell wanting to tinker there. But again, I wouldn't adjust that. I look at last night and I say, as of today, March 3rd, this is my best 11 as of right now. And it sucks that Klaus isn't in it, but you have to play the guys that are scoring. And Adeniran is making magic out there right now. I'm not saying that Adeniran is better than Klaus, but until we get Klaus into form, and I do think we need to do that to be really successful this season, I think for now, you got to roll with the hot hands.
I think this is absolutely our best 11. So let's remind everybody what we have. Berkey in net, obviously. Marcanic, Nilsson, Parker, Totland, Celio, Leuven, Durkin, Indy, AZ, and Sam. Like, I agree with you. I think Durkin, it's one thing that you could try to switch out of here is, does Durkin need to be, or is he going to be a consistent starter? I mean, the way that Blum's playing, or Blum wasn't even on the bench last night. So figuring that out, and I agree. I also will say, I don't think Klaus is a good off the bench guy. I would love for him to be a starter, but right now, this is my best 11. I would say Sam is playing out of his mind and just absolutely bullying guys. I do think he should have slotted that one across, especially like if he can focus on trying to find Klaus. If Klaus can see one go in the back of the net, it's just like Steph Curry hitting a 3. You just got to see one go in and the goals will just flow. So I think once we get one of those, that would be helpful. And I do think Klaus is a better starter than a bench guy, but as of right now, this is our best 11.
So ratings, Berkey did not have much to do last night whatsoever. But I mean, for a performance when he only needs to make, what was it, one save last night? Right? Yeah, one save. One save, that was it. I mean, I'm going to give that an A. I don't know what else he could have done to make this team successful. A clean sheet, hasn't had one since September, mid-September of last year. So I love it. I'm giving him an A despite the not much action. But as a goalkeeper, when you're called upon, you got to do your job, and he did his job last night.
And I thought I can't even recall what the save was, which shows that's how well our defense played in front of him. And before we get into them, I will say the one thing that Berkey can do when he doesn't have to make saves is, one, direct the game, which you're never going to see in stats, but he does that time and time again. But 2, I think that he also did an incredible job with his feet. There's one that comes to mind specifically that he had a back pass to him. I think it was from Marcanic, maybe a little bit slower than what it could have been. He had to take a big touch onto his left foot, and he lumped it up the field to Sam. Spot on with his left foot, a good 60-yard ball. So that's another thing that you can always look at when he isn't called upon.
Really quick, Justin, the save was really good. Remember, it was a head down, and he had to meet the guy one and made a big body save, like huge.
Yep. He got huge. And I think that's some of the saves that we either see him making it was, I think, back-to-back in the Houston game is exactly the 2 types of saves that we see from Berkey, either diving one-handed saves that are spectacular, or right afterwards when he made that big save against Houston to pop back up and get big. Those are so underrated. It's just insane that you have to, when you have someone that close range, you just have to get your body in front of it and keep it out in any way you can. And he did that again last night. Moving up into the back line, FootMob here has Totland as the lowest rating of the 4 in the back line. And I guess I would kind of agree. I'd give him like a B+. I don't think he did anything bad. But Parker and Nilsson, I thought, had a great game. Specifically Nilsson, I think he had the best of the back line last night. I thought that the way that he was able to position himself and then also win tackles one-on-one and then just be able to still get the ball off his feet, I thought he did an incredible job. I thought Marcanic did well to get up and down the field, but overall, I'd give Nilsson an A+ for last night.
Yeah, I think everyone else I would give an A. I mean, you didn't hear too much from Totland last night. Yeah. I think that's fine too. Even Parker, but I think Nilsson was by far, and I don't want to spoil my party. We're going to get to the who we're handing our flowers to for the soul of the team. But let's move to the midfield, Justin. Let's talk about who was instrumental for us. I think Indy, especially early game, was my A player. I think he was fantastic, just driving this team up and down the field, contributing on the defensive and attacking end. But I will say this was, to me, a getting back into form game for Leuven. He was our pass creator out there. He had the most passes on the team. He was very accurate with his passing. And I wouldn't even say it was a staple Leuven game, because usually you see him leave his print on there or some ripper of a shot that's challenging the goalie. I think there's more to come with him, but it was a good step in the right direction for Leuven.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there was a whole lot that he needed to do last game, which is good. I think we had a ton of highlights throughout the entire team, and it's not that he had a bad game. I think he's just directing the game in that sense. We don't need him to be the shot creator. We just need him to own the midfield, cut out passes on their end, and then just redistribute to these guys that are just extremely crafty. Go ahead.
One more point on the Leuven. I think a Leuven paired up with a Durkin makes his life so much easier, because Durkin is a ground coverer. He is everywhere, and he's not the fastest, but he doesn't give up on plays. He is always down the back of his defender, always in their pocket, trying to stifle them or to get a touch on the ball before they receive the pass. I love his work rate and his work ethic, and he allows Leuven more freedom to maneuver up the pitch, where we see him also be dangerous and more of like a hybrid, like 8-10, I would say, position.
Yeah, I will say on that, Jake, maybe let's take a point to this, or if anybody listening has a spot where we can find this. I would love to see like how much these guys run each game, because I agree with you. I think Mr. Durkin is flying around everywhere, and that's a good thing for him. And then it lets Leuven, who is going to have a very long season with us, save his legs. It doesn't need to do that. So let's see if we can find that. Getting into I won't jump ahead as well, but Célio had just an incredible game. I think every time he touches the ball, you're almost like about to stand up because you think something incredible is going to happen. And I felt that way multiple times last night with him. So I thought he did awesome. And I agree. I thought Indy looked even more crafty than he has in the first 3 games. The boys were just feeling it last night. Moving up to the forwards, Mr. Sam Adeniran did another incredible game last night. I agree. He probably shouldn't have shot that shot, but if you're beating guys and you got that much pace and you can rip a 90-mile-per-hour shot from that close, it's going to be hard to save. So great shot, great goal. AZ, I would say, was a little bit off last night. And I do think that he has played a ton of minutes these past couple games. And that's what, it sucks that we bounced out of the Champions Cup on a positive spin there, is that we don't play again until next weekend. So now these guys can just focus on the regular season. And now we're not in the U.S. Open Cup as of right now, which I don't think is going to change.
Yep.
But we can kind of just flow into this season and get these guys into a rhythm without beating them with how many games and minutes they're having to play. So I think AZ having a little time off would be helpful.
The one negative I will put out there too on that point is those competitions that aren't MLS do allow you to kind of spread minutes around when you are dealing with multiple games in a week. Now we move into a game a week model for the next, until middle or middle to end of May, where there's not as much minutes to go around. If you want to play, you better be working your tail off and impressing at practice, or when you do get the chance to play, you better be lighting it up out there. There's not going to be many opportunities to come by. And I will say it's hard to be fair and keep Adeniran off the field when he is scoring at the output he is. I will also say I think it was an A performance from him last night. He is just so painfully himself. You know what I mean? He is, you're not going to, I don't know if he looks up to pass very often when he's heading towards goal. And normally I'd be like, man, I just wish he would look up. And I do, but he's a no frills type of player. He is just pure power behind the ball. And when he strikes through the ball, he strikes it with such force that even these tight angles, he gives himself a chance on. And so I kind of like that no BS style as well, because at least he's shooting. It's like you watch the Blues sometimes. Everyone just yells shoot when they think the right opportunity comes up. With Sam, no one needs to tell him anything. He's just ripping the ball. And I like that about him. It's just simple.
That's what and it needs to be. And I think we need that right now. We're having guys that create the chances around him, and we just see that finishing power that we get from Sam, and I absolutely love it. So I think he did a great job with that. Jake, let's get into one of my favorite segments, the heart and soul juice of the game. If you guys haven't already gotten soul juice, which I don't know how you haven't, if you don't shop at Deerberg's, Schnucks, Sam's, Costco, hopefully getting into some gas stations here. You can go to Straub's even and get this stuff. You can get it online at Soul Juice as well. Go buy some Soul Juice. It's incredible. It revives me every Sunday morning, every time I go for a run. I feel like I'm drinking this more than water now because it tastes so good as well. Natural 3 ingredients with water, lemon juice, and Korean pear juice. Get your electrolytes. Get to souljuice.com. You can go and get 20% off using code BALLWATCHING. And Jake, I'm going to actually just quickly share my screen real quick and show people how easy this is to do. If you go to www.souljuice.com, you put in a little 12 count, you type in the code BALLWATCHING, and you hit enter, you will get your 20% off, and you will have this cheaper and then you can have it delivered to your house. You don't even need to go to the store. You can just have it delivered and get to go ball watching, get some soul juice, and revive yourself on this beautiful Sunday.
Wow. Great work there, Justin. I'm going to go buy me some soul juice.
Thank you.
That's kind of getting to the end of player ratings for us, Justin. The last thing we have here is predictions, Grahammer review. The boys were hot.
You gotta. Who was your soul juice player of the game?
Oh, geez, yeah. Oh, well, it's easy.
Sorry, I just absolutely sold juice so hard. You kind of
I've made
forgot
it clear. I made mine clear. Joachim Nilsson last night was impeccable. He was every bit the player that we were promised last night. I pulled up his stats on defense last night. He had 17 defensive actions. The nearest to him across both teams was 11, and that was Marcanic. And he had 1 interception, 2 recoveries, 8 clearances, 5 headed clearances. And the guy was just breathing down the necks of every attacker last night, making them so uncomfortable. He didn't give any space. And yeah, the pace is out there and it can be exposed at times, but he has so much experience that he compensates for it in different ways. So I want to see more of that. If we can get that for a full season next to Tim Parker, who was Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year, imagine this back line where we can go.
And you put those two in front of Mr. Roman Berkey, the goalkeeper of the year. Incredible. You already know where I'm going with my Soldiers player of the game. Heart and soul of this team, last game, Mr. Célio-h. He had 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 rip off of the post. And what does it say? It says 48,692 dirty touches. Yeah, I don't know where I just found that, but he was so electric. It was absolutely insane. I love Célio-h. I just said the L word. He is my Soldiers player of the game.
It's a love fest, man. It's a love fest here on this Sunday morning. And we got to love ourselves too, Justin. And for any of you that followed us yesterday on the bets and the predictions, we both predicted 2-0 on the show for the score. So shout out to us both. And then we also both ended up in the green on the bets. Justin bet his classic tried and true home field advantage City team total over 1.5 goals at plus money this week and cashed that. And then I bet both teams to score no, knowing that would be City for the team to score. And so I also cashed that. So it was a good all around Saturday night for everyone.
Jake, I told you, and I did it. You could have sprinkled a little bit on NYCFC not to score at plus 240. Yeah. Cash that little sprinkle. And then, I took the over 1.5, which I always do. Anything that's plus money when it's hitting it over, we talked about it with Nate on the verdict on Friday. Anything that's plus money and it's hitting at almost a 75% rate, hammer it every time. I will always take us to score 2 goals at home.
Justin, last thing, we got a good question here from Jonathan. I know we talked about it last night at the game. It's top of everyone's mind right now, and I want to just make sure we cover it because I think we have a voice, and we want to make sure that people know where we stand on this too because it's important. But obviously, for everyone that hasn't heard, we will not be participating in the U.S. Open Cup this year, which starts very soon. As of now, unless there's any late-breaking changes, St. Louis City 2, not going to compete in this year's U.S. Open Cup. It's a very weird format how they're doing entries, but no CONCACAF Champions Cup MLS teams made it this year. They're all being kept out besides the Dynamo, who have to defend their U.S. Open Cup title. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of how they all landed these teams, but we're not going to be in it. And all of our supporters groups, the Luligans, have come out and said they're going to be boycotting Leagues Cup because of this decision. And I want to say that I respect it. I definitely respect, making your voice heard. I think if any time more than now, this is the time in the day and age for U.S., honestly, looking at this country where people respond when enough people have their voices heard and stand together. And I hope that, teams around the league and their supporters groups do the same because I do legitimately feel like there can be change. Because remember, there was no MLS in the U.S. Open Cup just a couple weeks ago. Now we have, 8 teams and then a couple MLS Next Pro teams as well. So it's something, but it's not where we want it to be. And so I just want to say that I support that wholeheartedly. I'm still going to root for the team, obviously, in whatever endeavor they're in Leagues Cup, but I totally understand that decision. And I do think that, hopefully it's a money grab, man. Leagues Cup is just a money grab. And for people that are saying it's all MLS, it's not. MLS is also responsible for the owners. And we have owners here. Every club has owners and everyone has different interests. And so it's just, there's so much that's embedded in this. And it's really a bummer because it's just the most historic and cool tournament in the United States, in my opinion.
It's been, the history behind it. It's a 100+ year tournament, and it's really sad, honestly, that we will not be partaking in this either from a City or City 2 side. And the whole reason for anybody that's wondering, I'll quick down low on why City 2 didn't get in, because I was very confused. I'd ask you this, Jake, is like, we made the playoffs for City too. So like, what do they deserve not to get in? It's because every MLS franchise is getting a chance to be in one of these two tournaments with Champions Cup or the Open Cup. So if you're in Champions Cup, then you're not in Open Cup. And then if your first team is in Champions Cup, then your second team is also not in the Open Cup. So that's the reason why City 2 didn't get in. There's a lot of politics behind this whole thing, but I really just want them to get this figured out because I think it's an awesome tournament and should not be just thrown away for a money grab here at the end. So full support of our supporter groups boycotting this. I think it is sad, but I think something does need to be done. And that's the way that we need to make our voices heard, is by staying silent.
Yeah, and we know where we stand with the club too. At least Diego Gigliani came out and spoke about this as well and said they were pretty bummed about this. It's just such a historic thing, especially in St. Louis. You know, I feel like we're kind of a big hub for the U.S. Open Cup with our history. So bummer, very, very disappointed to see that decision. But, you know, I do think that this is not the end either. I mean, my eyes kind of tilt towards next year and seeing if this year goes the way that it is with these protests. I mean, there's no way they keep the same format heading into another year. So we're optimistic here at the show, but definitely understand and want to give everyone our take on this. So thank you everyone for tuning in today on this fine Sunday morning. This glorious, glorious winning feeling is deeply embedded in us right now. And if you're listening to the show on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever, make sure you show us some love, show us some likes. We'll be back with you all again on Wednesday for a preview of going down to Austin, right back where it all started, and hoping to replicate the same form. I think we put 11 goals past Austin last year, something like that. It was insane. So I'm really excited to head back down and have this fixture next weekend. But until Wednesday, everyone have a great week, and all for City.
All for City.